Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is in South Korea this morning, where she's set to make a historic visit to the demilitarized zone that divides the North and South. On Tuesday, she concluded her trip to Afghanistan by taking part in a conference on the future of Afghan security held in the lockdown capital of Kabul. Afghan President Hamid Karzai said Afghan police and military would be responsible for security by 2014. The conference comes about 1 year before President Obama's target date to begin withdrawing U.S. troops from Afghanistan. Joining us now with more on America's future in Afghanistan is Brian Montopoli, political reporter for CBSNews.com. So, Brian, Afghan President Karzai is talking like 2014 before they're secure, but President Obama's talking 2011. What happens? There's a big gap in between there.
Absolutely. So President Obama said July 2011 we start bringing the troops home. But really, it was kind of a, let's call it a political move, because he needed to placate people who said this war has been going on too long. You know, we need something like a timeline for withdrawal. So he says 2011 we start coming home. But the truth is, America is not going to really take troops out of Afghanistan in July 2011. The country is not ready. The Kandahar offensive is behind schedule. We have a lot to do there before we can leave. The country is really a mess. And so we're going to bring a few troops home after July 2011, but really, America's going to be in Afghanistan for another 5 years, probably. And keep in mind, this is a war that's already been going on for 9 years. I mean, this is the longest war America's ever been involved in.
Well, I think Americans are getting weary of the war, and I mean, how are they going to react if the president doesn't stick to the timeline? I know you said that it's not technically 2011, everybody's coming home, but I think a lot of Americans believe that that's the case, so what happens then?
I think that the president's just going to be resolute. He's going to say, look, we need to finish the job. If we don't finish the job, al-Qaeda is going to get a foothold again. We all remember what happened on September 11th. And we need to create a stable Afghanistan for the purposes of U.S. security. You know, a lot of people, though, are going to say enough is enough. I mean, how long can we be in Afghanistan? If you look at what is going on right now, you've got Hamid Karzai, the president of Afghanistan, essentially being propped up by the United States. There's widespread corruption in this government. He's talking about partnering with the Taliban because we haven't been able to eradicate the Taliban.
How has the Taliban been able to maintain so much power?
I mean, intimidation, they're thugs. I mean, these are bad guys. Let's look at the Marja offensive, which was a recent U.S. offensive in Afghanistan. You have the United States goes in there, they clear out the insurgents. They say, we're going to set up a government. But the Taliban was just sort of lying in wait. So once the United States tried to set up a government, the Taliban started executing anyone that was working with the Americans. They started, you know, they were intimidating people on the streets. You know, they were shaming women. I mean, these people are out there and they're a real presence. And at some point, Afghanistan and the United States just cut their losses and say, look, I guess we have to work with the Taliban. Working with the Taliban, though, I mean, think about that. 9 years later, we've had this war, and we're gonna bring people into the government that are the same people that protected Osama bin Laden after September 11th. I mean, that is a difficult pill for us to swallow.
Absolutely. And British Prime Minister David Cameron met with President Obama at the White House of the first public appearance together. I mean, where are their differences? They have political differences, differences on the war in Afghanistan. If the British Prime Minister talks about withdrawing troops,
Europe does not want to be in Afghanistan any longer. I mean, Britain is probably the United States' biggest ally. I think they have about 10,000 troops in Afghanistan. He says, you know, they're going to stay the course, but public opinion there is even worse than it is here when it comes to troops in Afghanistan. So, you know, they said all the right things, but realistically, I don't think the United States can expect Britain to be a long-term partner in Afghanistan.
which is scary because they're one of our biggest allies, correct?
They are supposedly, you know, the special relationship. But, you know, that's not the only issue on which the United States and Britain have a split right now. So.
Okay. All right. Brian Montopoli, political reporter for CBSNews.com. Thank you.
Thanks so much.